Recently, the X-Men established the nation-state of Krakoa. Krakoa is a place where all mutants can peacefully coexist without worrying about being oppressed. Part of the X-Men's founding of Krakoa was establishing a governing body that would rule over and make all of those decisions. This body was called the Quiet Council. One of the Quiet Council's first rules is to murder no man. Victor Creed, also known as Sabretooth, a longtime foe of Wolverine, committed the cardinal sin and was sentenced to the pit, essentially the hell, if you will, of Krakoa. However, it wasn't that bad for Victor because he did find a way to manifest his consciousness and wreak absolute havoc on the nation state of Krakoa. He recently was able to free himself from the clutches of the Krakoan hell, but he ended up, getting captured by anti-mutant conspirators known as Orcus. My name is Arco Braddock, and today we're going to go ahead and review the brand new Sabretooth comic, Sabretooth and the Exiles #1. But before we get deeper into the video, wanted to encourage you guys to consider subscribing to the channel. If it's your first time checking out our content, please be sure to also go ahead and hit that like button. And next up, I want to go ahead and introduce our excellent creative team on Sabretooth and the Exiles #1 over from Marvel Comics. This issue is written by Victor LaValle, and we have art in the issue from Leonard Kirk. In addition, there's colors from Rain Beredo, letters from VC's Cory, Petit, and we have a cover from Ryan Stegman, JP Mayer, and Frank Martin that I'm actually going to go ahead and show you guys right now. So here's a look at the gorgeous cover for Sabretooth and the Exiles. And I want to go ahead and read off the solicitation text over from Marvel as well. Sabretooth takes his destiny into his own clawed hands. The powers that be condemned Sabretooth to the pit for breaking the rules of Krakoa. But now he's free, and he's ready to show the world you can't keep Victor Creed down. Even as the exiles from Krakoa speed along in hot pursuit, a new chapter in the fan-favorite saga begins in brutal fashion, but when Dr. Barrington gets her hooks in Creed, he'll be lucky to survive the first issue. Victor LaValle and Leonard Kirk return to this unforgettable installment in the chronicles of one of Marveldom's most vicious mutants. And next up, I want to show off some of the gorgeous interiors from the issue over from Leonard Kirk. And actually, I want to go ahead and kick off our review by just talking about Kirk's art. I've been a massive fan of Kirk's art for a long time, but I never thought that Kirk would be able to adapt the style of art to something that's so violent like this Sabretooth title. If you take a look at this page, this exemplifies exactly what I'm trying to show you. We can see clearly that Sabretooth is captured by Orcus on this page, but instead of looking kind of like ashamed, he has a vicious and intense look. Even though the pencils in this particular page are so clear, this is still an incredibly violent scene teasing Victor's escape, which happens much later in the story. If you look at this page, it even has some gorgeous facial work for some of the Orcus mutants, or some of the Orcus characters, which is interspersed with a real harsh sense of violence on the very next page. So the art in this series does a wonderful job delivering a sense of cognitive dissonance by being so clear with what you're seeing and teasing the fact that what you're seeing is a really intense level of violence throughout the comic book. Readers have heard a lot about the threat of Orcus, and I feel like there's been very few comics that successfully are able to flesh out the threat of Orcus in a coherent manner, which I really love that this comic leaned into completely. Basically in the main X-Men titles, we've been seeing, threats from the Eternals or outer space. whereas this issue is really able to operate on the fringes of Krakoa and establish this interesting new team of exiles, along with their really kind of tense relationship with Creed that actually develops as this issue goes on as well. Because this team of exiles was actually sent to go ahead and recover Sabretooth, but they learn that he's been captured by Orcus. The relationship between Sabretooth and these exile characters is not in kind of the best condition right now, because there were moments during the initial Sabretooth miniseries where he helped these exile characters who were also in the pit with them, and there were moments where he lashed out and attacked them as well. So everybody here feels a really conflicted sense of loyalty to Creed that fleshes out the issue in a really beautiful way. There are really great moments, with Orphan Maker as well. And, throughout this issue, I really appreciate how we even have some of the plot threads from Hellions continuing in this Sabretooth and the Exiles series. I think this issue did a wonderful job pulling on some of those plot threads from House of X and Powers of 10 as well. I just really have to give it to writer Victor LaValle in this series for just kind of fleshing out these really complicated dynamics and getting, so many different characters, really great character moments throughout this issue. This is an oversized issue clocking in at, well over about 34 pages here. And I just think a lot of this content really wonderfully establishes and fleshes out the role of Sabretooth. Sabretooth essentially is still on the run from these characters, but I think this issue does a wonderful job really driving this plot forward. Also, despite the fact that this series has some really heady and intense plotting, this issue was relatively easy to follow, which I'm going to commend Marvel for doing so. I'd say if you're new to the Sabretooth title, it would probably be best to pick up that initial, miniseries and then to go ahead and jump over to this book. But I was just happy to see so much consistency over from that series from a writing and art standpoint. Also, I think kind of the end of this issue really teases some fascinating developments for kind of future issues. And again, just the way that kind of Sabretooth puts a bow and acknowledges his complicated relationship with the Exiles really makes this issue stand apart from other comics in the lineup of Krakoa. I think one of the last things I want to say about this is I just love all of these complicated and nuanced scenarios that LaValle puts Creed in. These really kind of weird, wacky situations allows Leonard Kirk to deliver a sense of violence through his kind of beautiful, pristine lens of art that makes this issue, need to be seen essentially to be believed. Sabretooth and the Exiles does a wonderful job fleshing out and pulling on those plot threads of the original Sabretooth series while doubling down on the stakes, making things more tense, and fleshing out new plot threads like the relationship of Orcus. So I want to know, did you love this issue as much as I did? Are you enjoying Sabretooth's stroll through the fringes of Krakoa? I want you guys to let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and we'll be back soon with more excellent comic book content. I'll see you very soon. Bye.